I look forward to discussing with all of you and, to be warned, all of you in a few minutes' time. Thank you. As we strive towards a sustainable future for mobility, it's important to think about more than light-duty vehicles and the private car. We also have to consider the critical role that heavy-duty vehicles play in our societies and economies.
It's important that we have a technology-neutral approach to this, because one solution is not likely to serve every single commercial vehicle application.
It is important for industry to get clear, consistent rules to follow over a multi-year period. Ideally, the rules should be agreed over party lines, so a shifting government do not change the rules.
The industry needs subsidy funding to help accelerate the growth of zero-emission technology. The government can help here to ensure that the UK can lead the world.
Decarbonising heavy-duty goods vehicles requires the whole ecosystem to work together. The issue is about power distribution. Well, we have today in the UK a lot of things to do in terms of processes and getting the power straight into the depots or across the UK to make sure that we can charge vehicles when they are en route. This is the area where customers are not feeling very comfortable and confident today.
Thank you for joining us. So we're in that uncomfortable position of sitting between you and lunch. So I am going to ask you questions as well. So be ready, not just yet, but be ready. And I'm going to tell you a secret. I didn't say I was going to say this to everybody. I was asking the panelists how they prefer to be referred to, whether it's Jonathan or John, whether it's Carl-Magnus or Carl, whether it's Robert or Rob. There's a consistency here that Carl-Magnus is only called Carl-Magnus by his mother when she's angry. Jonathan's only called Jonathan by his mother when she's angry. So if I start referring to them in that way, you know what I'm thinking. But let's talk. Let's talk, because this is really hard, and it's very important as a policymaker, as a business leader, that when you're faced with a really difficult issue, you walk towards it and you grasp it. And one of the themes that we're hearing in your talk, Carlos, but in the introduction that we saw from the panel, is that this might or probably will not be a unitary solution. So I wanted to start to talk about use cases. And Carl, can you tell us, please, you're doing, having worked for a while in a company trying to produce commercial vehicles, I have huge respect for what you're doing and what you're achieving. But do you want to tell us a little bit about Volta and how you're approaching this issue of which technology for which use case?
Yeah, so we we're a startup, basically, or starting to become a scale-up now. But really, I think in that situation, it's very important to be focused. And in our case, we really only focus on distribution traffic in cities, which is unique or different from, of course, long-haul transport, etc. So the mileage they are driving is relatively limited. As Carlos said before, the back of the truck, whatever you have on there is important for our customers. So and to me, it's the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to conversion from diesel to electric or to a non-fossil fuel. So that's really what we have been doing. That is also, when we come to the prerequisite for that, is the e-axle. That we can do another design. We don't have to have the big bulky combustion engine in the front of the truck. So that gave us the opportunity to really redesign the cab. And that comes with other benefits for safety, for reducing blind spots around the truck, for the ingress and egress for the drivers and so on. So that's different from long haul.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we'll have an opportunity to talk again about customers. But Robert, can I talk about you? Obviously, Wrightbus provides a very different form of vehicle. It does carry people, but it's in a public service environment. Can you give us your take on this variation required in use case?
Certainly. So Wrightbus, we are a UK-owned bus manufacturer. We design, manufacture buses in Northern Ireland. We built our first battery electric bus in 1998, built our first fuel cell electric bus in 2006. So we have a long history of knowing and understanding zero emission vehicles and understanding how our customers use them. In 2020, around about 20% of our vehicles were zero emission. This year, we're almost at 90% zero emission. So it's been a really, really big modal shift for us. So it's happened at a very fast rate. And we have done that by being as agnostic as we can be to the differences between diesel, the difference between battery electric, and the difference between hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. So we've moved across onto a zero emission platform. So it's a new bespoke vehicle from the ground up for battery electric and for fuel cell electric, so as we can maximize the benefits of this. But the biggest challenge is working with our supply chain, working with our customers, and helping them make the right choice, because it isn't a one-size-fits-all. I know it's a common theme I think you'll hear across the platform. All our customers have to continue to make money. The ownership model is different from past car. So fundamentally, everybody has to be able to transition their business and be profitable. And a big part of that is helping them pick battery electric or fuel cell electric or whatever is the right blend for them to continue to be commercially successful.
Thank you. And John, you're in a distant part in the in the ecosystem here, but how does that manifest to you as Cummins, one of the major suppliers to
Right. So we're a supplier to I think all of the gentlemen here. Actually, we provide technologies and components to just a huge range of commercial applications globally. What that means for us is we have to have technology options and solutions that are right for such a huge range of applications, whether with long-haul trucks in North America going across the Rockies through to delivery vehicles in Europe and short-haul in UK. It's just such a breadth of technologies that we have to provide, because the duty cycle and the application means that it does play to different types of technologies, and that means we have to develop components, subsystems, whether it's an electric axle or a battery pack or a hydrogen internal combustion engine, to serve those markets and those applications as we go through this decarbonisation journey over the next decade or so that's ahead of us.
Yeah, and it's interesting, just one reflection from the presentations earlier, this purchasing decision has far less emotion. It's less about customer needs, it's about total cost of ownership, it's about greasy-fingered fleet managers who will be thinking about uptime, which can kill a business which operates on such slow margins. Well, look, thank you all for the introduction. Now I'm going to take an opinion in the room, if you don't mind. So please could I respectfully ask, everyone able to do so, please could I ask you to stand up? Or if you're not comfortable to stand, raise your hands. Thank you.
Audience participation, here we go.
Yeah. So can I ask, it's a simple question, is that if you believe that all new or the vast majority of new heavy-duty vehicles will be zero emission in 2030, can you sit down? Yeah, okay, there we go. How about 2035?
Wow.
Okay.
That's interesting.
2040. More optimistic? By the way, I know some people who don't believe it's possible, so if you feel, I'm going to ask the next question, if you still want to stand up, don't be shy. How about 2050?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's a long journey, right?
It's a long journey.
There you go.
It's a long journey, and let me put this back. Let me tell, as many people will know, I spent some time in government, and two things I learned from there, very powerful experiences. Number one is that much as regulators might like to, they can't regulate the laws of physics. So you need to think about what's the appropriate solution. But the other thing I also learned is that the brilliance and ingenuity of engineers holds no bounds. And I'm not saying everything's necessarily electric in the future, but I remember Neville Jackson, I see we discussed this many times, that winding back to 2009, the opportunity or the likelihood of having 60% of the UK's heavy goods vehicles being performed by electric propulsion seemed impossible, but since then we've had a 90% reduction in battery pack price, well, it depends who you look to, 3 times increased energy density of EV storage. So I want to talk a little bit about powertrains, and I'm actually going to come back to you, John, first. Sure. I'm not asking you for specific numbers, but across the options available, electric and hydrogen, synfuels, what are the kinds of opportunities and potential you're seeing to some of the timeframes that clearly our audience today are interested in?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot moving and a lot moving very quickly, actually. You know, you're right, technology investment has driven our industry for decades, actually. If you think back to emissions regulations and other things, they've been fantastic for the industry because it's actually driven innovation, even when we, with diesel or internal combustion. So looking ahead, we're already seeing now fuel cell technology is moving at a pace, and particularly with respect to scale of manufacture, driving down cost, power densities of fuel cells, all of those things are moving at a tremendous rate, which will make them more viable solutions going forward that will put them in a better total cost of ownership with an electric powertrain. Electrified axles, rather than going from a central drive axle, which are fairly sizable and can be quite large and traditionally fit in what a chassis that you would have an internal combustion engine in, going to e-axles, giving flexibility for chassis designs that are different to those that you would have for for internal combustion engine, which means you can put more batteries on the chassis. And then, of course, with batteries, battery technology continues to move at a pace and also drive down on cost. Power densities, charging rates, which are incredibly important if we look at some duty cycle applications, getting high charging rates, being able to get energy on board quickly. So all of those are moving in the right trajectory and moving incredibly fast. So it is all a key part of how this becomes a future that's, coming back to your point, right total cost of ownership for fleet operators or users that can adopt these and see them as viable. So a lot moving in all of those areas. Yeah.
Great. Well, I mean, that's both tremendously exciting and tremendously challenging when it comes to capability, right?
Indeed, but, yes.
Carlos, can I ask you, you spoke very eloquently about the potential for electric, but your message at the end was around the need to come together on infrastructure. Hydrogen. We all say, many of us say, it's part of the story. What do you see as the key challenges on having a viable hydrogen option for your vehicle range?
I think this thing about different type of fuels to transport goods, we need to bring this back to what are we trying to achieve. All of this is down to energy. There is today an amount of energy which is used in the industry. There is in the UK about 400,000 trucks which operate on a yearly basis. All of them use energy. Today it's diesel. So what we need to think of is how do we transform all this energy into something else to reduce carbon, right? So once you have said that, and also the outcome is to reduce carbon for climate. So that's what we're trying to achieve. The problem we have is, yes, we can all be sitting here and saying battery electric vehicle is better or hydrogen is better, and we can debate this. Let's look at the facts. Let's go back to science, and that's what we have to do. But at one point, hydrogen will be in competition between different industries. Likewise, biofuels, biogas. All these energies will be required and demanded by different industries. So the transport industry, we will demand all of them, but what happens is at one point in time, the shipping industry, which is far more difficult to decarbonize, will also need to find fuels for themselves, as well as the aircraft industry and the planes. So we will have hydrogen fuel cell vehicles before the end of this decade, which will be ready. and they will be used in certain applications. And we know how to develop trucks. We've done that for more than 100 years. So it's not new for a manufacturer to develop technology, and we will work with partners like Cummins to do these things. But the real issue is, among all these energies which will be required by everyone, there will be priorities. And if other sectors are more demanding and can't electrify, they will demand hydrogen more than us, more than the transport industry. So these energies will maybe not be available for the transport industry. And everyone who goes into HVO, biofuels, biogas, it's good. It has having an impact now. But is it the long-term solution for everything? Probably not, just because of the access to energy. That's I think, something worth.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this is it's Bloomberg and Liebreich analysis that just to decarbonise existing uses of hydrogen, and that's, you know, hydrogenation, agriculture, etc. One assessment has said that it would require 143% of globally installed renewables capacity of solar and wind. So where does the hydrogen come from? Is also very interesting. Just to the control room, I don't have a countdown timer, so can you just prompt me to, so I can manage time effectively? Thank you.
I just want to add one thing. When I started this company, it was really a little bit of frustration that politicians, anyway Swedish, then they're not here, they said a lot of things. They said, you know, we should do 2030 at the time, 2045 or something like that. And from my point of view, was really the problem is not in 2045, the problem is now, or even a few years back. So, and the problem for me with, in our use case, as I said, I think battery electric is fully suitable. For long haul, obviously not, but the problem with hydrogen is, I mean, there is no production, there is no distribution right now. So if we want to have an impact today or tomorrow, then that is the solution. I hope, and as with that hydrogen will develop, and if somebody in a few years' time come to me and say, okay, hydrogen work better for our use case, that's fine. I want to add that to our range as such. But it's also a timeline here, and electric works. And I think also that we have seen the battery electric, the batteries increase in density and lowering price, etc. I think that will continue. So in a few years' time, I think we can run longer distances and so on with battery. Because obviously the investments into battery technology is only almost a few years old. 5-6 years ago, nobody talked about it for our use cases, or almost nobody. So I'm a strong believer in that technology will advance, new materials, etc., etc. So obviously optimistic.
Quite right too. And I think you've given us some hints about, you know, you see further opportunities. I'm very interested to see whether you mean that your existing vehicles go further, or your how you reinvest that advance in battery technology. Are you prepared to say about future plans at all, or should we wait for future announcements? Do we get a scoop?
No, I think we are seeing a lot of, as I said, lots of investment coming into the sector, and I think that will lead to, as I say, higher density. You can drive longer distances and obviously be better prepared to supply our customers.
Great, thank you. Carlos?
Just to add on what Carl, and I'm not angry at you by saying Carl now. It's when people think about hydrogen, back to energy. If let's say everything was hydrogen, and we will go all for hydrogen only, and of course green hydrogen, because that's what we're trying to achieve, you will need 3 times more power at source than going battery electric. Because that's the difference from a cradle to grave analysis back to facts. You need 3 times more kilowatts produced on solar and wind to power a wheel of an electric vehicle, if it is fuel cell or hydrogen in that case. So that's something you guys have to have in mind when you think about these different fuels. It's all a matter of energy, and we need to use that energy the best we can. And the best solution in most applications is battery electric vehicle.
So, Rob, I want to come back to you because we have a few minutes left, and I actually wanted to talk about making this commercially viable. You know, so there's the adage, like, we all want to go green, but none of us want to go into the red when we do it. And so in your customers, how does that play out? So in the conversations you have for them, you mentioned the importance of getting them to decide. And I think you've mentioned to me in the past operational freedom. You know, it needs to work. And I recall a conversation I was having with, it was the bus operators of an Asian city. Could not make electric vehicle work because there was such a draw to be compliant with the aircon, to keep the vehicles cool enough. But tell us about that conversation you have. That was a key message from you, Carlos, is that you need to understand the mind of the commercial vehicle consumer. How do those conversations go with you, Rob?
Sure. Well, a great conversation piece, this really, for me. It starts off with us mathematically modelling how our customers operate their diesel vehicles today, really understanding the power requirements, understanding how they drive, how many passengers they need to accommodate on the vehicles, what the ancillary loads are, what the air conditioning loads are, and then understanding how that transition to battery electric would work in terms of if the vehicle operates for 23 hours a day, you've obviously got a big challenge straight away in terms of how can you carry enough batteries, how can you charge the batteries quickly enough for that? Is it possible to still decarbonise with batteries, but by introducing either a greater number of vehicles, changing how the vehicles are operated, are all sort of conversation pieces that we use our modelling tools to stimulate and to try and tease out the answers to. And I mean, yes, the bus industry's done very, very well with decarbonising with a large number of battery electric vehicles, but it's been a typical example of the low-hanging fruit has been addressed first. So in terms of the routes that are slightly easier are done first, or routes that are very high profile where there can be additional funding can be sought for, so you can increase the number of vehicles that that can operate and still afford to make money at the end of the day. Where the gets more interesting is can you charge the vehicles in time? Can you get a battery electric power supply into certain depots? Because there are many depots where that's not actually easily done. And in that case, you're starting to look at hydrogen from that perspective, because there isn't an alternative. If you can't get the power into the source, you can't really truck batteries into a depot in the same way that you can truck hydrogen into a depot. And then it gets into the really intensive duty cycles, which you can do with batteries, but you have to charge them more than once or carry a very significant amount. I mean, I don't particularly want to manufacture buses that have 700 plus kilowatt hours of battery storage on board. It's certainly possible, but I don't think that's a very good or eloquent solution to the problem. So it really comes from understanding the basics, understanding how the vehicles are operated, and working very, very closely with the customers so that they can afford to make a purchase decision based on total cost of ownership, that they can decarbonise and fundamentally make money.
Yeah, because you said something really interesting there, and Carl, I'm interested if you see this as well. You were talking about partnership, and from when I was at Transport for London, talking about the electrification plans there, the new factor that comes into this purchasing decision is real estate.
Yes.
Because if you do the calculations, and then it turns out you need an extra couple of parking bays, if you physically don't have the space, then it becomes impossible. Carl, do you have these conversations with your suppliers? You actually move beyond the vehicle into that operating environment?
No, I've said from the beginning that we cannot deliver a truck to anybody without securing that they actually can charge them. So, and when we started, there was nobody really taking care of that. So we also developed something what you call truck as a service, where we have a team of people going into the customer sites and looking how to electrify that site. Part of that is where they are going to be parked. In our use case, most customers drive during the day. they are parked from whatever, 5, 6 in the afternoon to 5, 6 in the morning. So we have ample time to actually charge the trucks, but most of the sites are not, set up for all those trucks. So, and coming back to what Carlos said before, I think there is a new ecosystem to be created here. It's of course our suppliers and our customers, but it's also involving the grid people, the real estate owners, because this is long-term investments. They can last, if they go into PVs, etc., they can last for 30 years or maybe more. So, and their customers, our customers, are often there maybe only for 3, 4, 5 years. So all these parties has to come together and find the solutions together.
Yeah.
Then we can really have a transition.
No, thank you. So John, one way of characterising your business is you're a technology and a capability provider in some ways.
Sure.
Based on what you just heard,
Yep.
what demands does that place on you as a business? Are you having to think beyond the powertrain, beyond the engine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest challenges we have right now is actually the transition from where we are today to where we're going to be in the future. I've no debate with Carl around, the future for his duty cycle is batteries. We've just signed a big battery deal with PACCAR and Daimler because we think batteries are going to be a big part of it. But we heard from the audience, we don't think it's going to be decarbonise this industry until 2040. But it's not about waiting. So it's about thinking about that transition from where we are today to where we need to be in the future and decarbonising through that. And so we spend a lot of time working with both OEMs, the truck manufacturers, actually we talk to fleets. We go directly to fleets and understand, so how are you running vehicles? With our diesel engine population that we have, because the company's 100 years old and made its name from internal combustion engine, we have hundreds of thousands of vehicles that we actually have data from to understand duty cycles, so we can start to talk to them, to fleets, about technical solutions and options that could be used not only in the future, but also now to decarbonise now. So that's a lot of what we're working on and thinking about, which is why actually it costs us a lot of money to develop all these technical solutions. But in order to decarbonise over the next 20, 30 years and provide solutions for this transition, that's what we have to do. So that's how we're thinking about it.
Okay, so for the last couple of elements of this panel, I'm going to get the guys here to try and help you because, by the way, it's nearly lunch. If anyone next to you is asleep, now's the time to nudge them. I'm about to ask a question. So there's a summary point here that I think we're hearing very consistently to policymakers, which is around having options open. I think there's a question of go for the early stuff. But I'm going to ask the panelists here to make a recommendation, not to government, but to businesses. What's the first thing you should do coming out of this event, having heard this panel, to do differently? I'm going to start, because when we work with big fleets, I often find people worrying about 10 years out, 15 years out, and maybe I'm stealing your words here, but if you put a number on the easier transition, that is already significant with existing technology. So my one-liner is look for what's easy to change. But let's go across the panel. Carlos, what's your message to businesses working what to do in this agenda?
Don't wait. Don't wait, because it is happening, and it's I kind of almost know it's my duty to convince you guys that trucks can be decarbonized, but it's quite depressing that you believe it's not happening. So we certainly have to work with my brand communication guys to do better at that. But it is happening. It is happening, and it is happening now. The technology is there. I think Mike referred to the mission Apollo going to the moon. These guys were building a rocket, to go to the moon. We know what a battery is. We know how to dig cables. We know what an electric cable is. So there is no rocket science in that.
Carlos, you didn't give me your angry name. We're running out of time.
Oh, sorry. So we'd go. Start now, because technology is there, and we can achieve it. I promise you. It's a matter of willingness.
Thank you. Rod.
I think the main point for me is that the technology's there. You know, we've got great supply chains, great manufacturers. We're building and designing really, really good products in this country. The bit that's missing is the infrastructure piece and some of the guidance around it. So it's to continue to support those manufacturers, support that product, and work together to get the infrastructure piece in place for it. Try to get our policymakers to legislate the boundary conditions rather than try to legislate the solutions.
Thank you. Carl?
This is stressing me a little bit.
Yeah, by the way, just
you know, I've got to go.
really big, red, flashing number to basically say,
No, but trying to not solving all the problems at the same time. Basically, yes, there is a long-term, we have 2030, 2040 or something, but look at the things you can do now and have some easy wins, basically, and then building on that for the next step. I think that's my recommendation.
Yeah, so I think all of these are all good points. That's getting really red now, so I'm going to go really quick. So I think, look at options, work with suppliers, vehicle OEMs, fleets, partner together to look at options, look at solutions, think through what can be done now as we go through this transition that we call the messy middle. It's going to be messy for a while as we sort of transition this. And so let's work together to partner on how we develop solutions that we can implement.
Fantastic. So the last word goes to you. I'm not going to ask you to stand up again. But based on what you've heard now, this is raising hands. Could you please raise your hands if you feel that following what you've heard, you are more optimistic about the challenges or the opportunities in decarbonising heavy-duty vehicles? I'll take it.
That's pretty good.
Everybody, I'd like to thank our panellists, Jonathan, Carl, Rob, and Carlos. Thank you very much.